When did you first notice something was wrong? Cancer Survivor's Story. Story 1, August 1st, 2015. I woke up and felt a strange pressure in my chest. The night before I had picked something up. I figured I'd just strain myself. Didn't think much of it. Until around November, I started getting itchy. Like really itchy. Mostly on my legs, but pretty much everywhere. I always struggled with having itchy skin after a hot shower. So at first I didn't pay it too much attention until it started getting annoying. I tried new shampoos and body wash, washed and changed my sheets, looked for bed bugs, lice, anything I could think of. Finally, on March 31st, 2016, a few weeks after my 21st birthday, I was just getting into bed when I coughed. Now, for context, I'd also suffer from frequent bloody noses, so I'm used to coughing and having a bloody nose. But this time when I coughed, I felt blood coming from down inside of me, rather than up from my nose. I immediately grabbed a cup and started coughing up blood into it, right next to my girlfriend in bed. I managed to tell her to call 911, and I threw myself into the bathroom. And there I was, holding on to the sink for dear life, coughing up more and more blood. I couldn't stop. Every time I tried to catch my breath, I would feel a tickle and have to cough, sending more blood out. That bathroom looked like the elevator from The Shining by the end of it. Finally, 10 minutes goes by, and the ambulance arrives. I had basically made my peace with this world and was prepared to let go. But then the coughing finally subsided, and I could breathe again without coughing up blood. Took a ride to the ER. They kept me for a week, poking and prodding me, doing tests. I almost got sent home with a diagnosis of tuberculosis. But finally they confirmed it was cancer. Stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma, to be exact. Sounds bad and scary, but out of all the types of cancers known, this one is fairly easy to cure and has a high success rate of not recurring. So I did chemo for 6 months. That sucked. Finished in October 2016. I'm just about to go in my last post-treatment checkup tomorrow. And hopefully, if everything is good, I won't have to keep getting checkups every year. Interestingly, however, I always had a feeling in my mind that one day I would get cancer. I can't exactly describe why I thought this, but I did, and it turned out to be true. Everyone, go get yourself checked out. You do not want to wait too long and let things progress. Do what you can to have good health, because without it, we are nothing. Also, my girlfriend was such a fucking trooper. She handled herself and the situation incredibly well for how scary that must have been for her. Lord knows I would be terrified if our roles reversed, and she was the one in trouble. I only pray I can handle things as good as her. If you're reading this, I love you and I am so proud you kept your cool. Story 2. First bout with cancer was my brain tumor. I was having a business meeting with a contractor who was doing some graphic design work for my company. I had a few brain farts over the last couple of months where I'd been trying to say a word, but just couldn't come up with it. I brushed them off as tip of my tongue type brain farts and ignored them. In this meeting, I got stuck on the word "and." I figured this was ridiculous and forced it, but what came out was "ah." And I don't remember anything after that other than waking up in the hospital. Turns out I had an oligodendroglioma, which had been pressing up against my speech center and had grown to the point where it was screwing with my ability to talk. It's incredibly rare, less than 4% of all brain tumors, and only found in men in their 40s. It's also almost never diagnosed until you have a seizure, which is what happened in the meeting. Apparently, the contractor was traumatized as I fell out of my chair and thrashed on the floor. Ambulances came, etc. I woke up on a gurney with an ER doc calmly telling me that the CAT scan had found a golf ball-sized lump in my brain that wasn't supposed to be there, and that I should probably go see an oncologist about that. That was over a decade ago. Oligodendrogliomas respond well to resection, chemo, and radiation treatment, and I've been fine ever since. The second bout was this year when polyp found during a routine colonoscopy had cancerous material in it, and they decided to do a lower colon resection in an abundance of caution. Turns out one of the 20-plus lymph nodes they removed along with the bottom 10 of my colon had some cancer in it. So I spent about 12 weeks this summer on a much more intensive course of chemotherapy than my brain tumor. That was a nasty ride, but I should be fine now. Story 3. I have had cancer twice. Both times testicular cancer, each time was independent from one another. First time was 4 years ago. It was a rare form of testicular cancer, not actually in the testicles. By the time it was found, it had spread to the pancreas, liver, and lungs. I had been very sick for weeks, and near the diagnosis I was pretty much vomiting all day and night, unable to eat and sleep. So you could say, I noticed early on when I was sick more than the usual fever duration, but had no idea what it was until doctors figured it out. Luckily, treatment was effective, so about 4 months later, I was back up and running, only chemo, no operation needed. Second time happened just a few months ago, when I noticed one of my testicles being slightly sore. Didn't feel out of the ordinary, but decided to have it checked. Doctor didn't feel anything, but because of my history, decided to have it scanned. Early stage cancer surgery did the job. Back up and running again, no chemo needed this time around. Today I'm 27 years old, blessed with a 1-year-old son and a loving wife. Life is good after all. General advice: if you ever have a suspicion, do yourself a favor and have it checked. Catch it early on, and not only do you improve your chances of surviving, you also get ease of mind. Story 4. I noticed something was wrong since I was in 5th grade. I was always so tired compared to other kids. I didn't have that boundless energy kids are supposed to have, or at least I didn't feel like I did. I always felt glum or dull. It was hard to sleep. Sometimes I felt too hot or too cold. I had unhealthy amounts of anxiety. My heart was pounding over the most stupid stuff. That spiraled into paranoia, which is just terrible for a kid to have to go through. The worst of it all was the brain fog. I struggled to concentrate and just think. It pissed me off to no end. Why couldn't I just think of A when I wanted to? There was so much mental noise and fog, almost like your head and ears are stuffed with cotton. For some reason, this completely killed my confidence in myself. I felt like I just wasn't as good as the other healthy kids. My dad doesn't deal with health stuff, so I'd bring it up to my mom. She told me I was exaggerating, that it was because I was on the computer too much, ate poorly, and didn't sleep enough. This routine went on till I was 16 or so, when I finally got sick of it and mentioned it to my primary doctor during a checkup. And here comes my mom chiming in X's above for why I felt the way I did. Doctor touched my neck area and felt a lump. Got an ultrasound eventually, and yup, there it was. My mom caved and said that nodules run in her family. She's got more than a dozen. Nice to know. Also, why nobody did a full blood test to see my thyroid hormone levels is beyond me. Apparently, my sister and grandma, dad's side, are hypothyroid. They wanted to watch it for a few years now to see if it got bigger. Finally, at 18, I got things moving. I got 2 biopsies on my left side since there was an obvious nodule, the first one not going well, and they decided they wanted to do another. Whoever said biopsies are painless is a huge liar. The results were what I hoped, because I knew something was wrong with me. My parents didn't want me to have any surgeries. I feel like they wanted to pretend that nothing was wrong. Finally, at 19, I had 2 hemorrhoidectomy operations for what they found were papillary carcinomas. One in a calcified nodule and little granules in 2 of my lymph nodes and the other side of my thyroid. I may need radiation later, but right now I'm avoiding it. I'm taking meds for the rest of my life. That's fine with me. The surgeries were a month apart from each other. I was 19 at the time and right in the middle of college. It was really hard for me, considering that my family and so at the time were naysayers or straight up indifferent to me, while I finally pushed for treatment. In hindsight, I should have had them both removed in one operation. They told me I had the option the first go around, but I wanted to keep functioning if I could. How could I do it if I had no idea what was going on with the other side? They refused to do a biopsy on the opposing side during surgery lane. They also knocked the nerves from my vocal cord during the first surgery, so I couldn't speak properly for 6 months and had to see a specialist for an implant to restore function if it didn't heal. Thank goodness it did. I sounded absolutely terrible, like those folk that have those voice boxes. It hurt. Speaking was a struggle. I sound normal now, but it's hard to carry on talking with the risk of sounding out of breath. Lol. Now that I'm on thyroid meds, I feel infinitely better compared to before. I have a lot more clarity than before. I still have anxiety, which is strange. It's like a reaction to things at this point. I hear it's a side effect of the meds. I'm working on improving my mindset. It's getting better. I sleep better. It's hard to get your dosage right, but when you do, it's like you feel close to normal again. I get off days pretty often and don't feel well if I'm off schedule. However, I'm a heck of a lot happier now. Also, my sister and mom got biopsies afterwards for themselves for nodules they have, just in case. Hope you all have a nice day. Story 5. I was diagnosed with a soft tissue sarcoma up 2 years ago. I was in the shower one day. I was putting soap on my leg when I noticed a lump on my left groin about the size of half a ping pong ball. I was surprised I hadn't noticed it before because of its size. It felt very smooth and very firm on touching. It wasn't causing me any pain either. It was just there. I initially thought that it was something minor, so I decided to give it a week to see if it would go away. A week later, it was still there, so I decided to go get it checked out. The doctors first performed an ultrasound, but the reports were inconclusive, so they just put me into general surgery to do a biopsy on the lump. 2 weeks after the surgery, the reports came back, and they confirmed that it was a high-grade cancerous tumor, which shocked me to the core. I then spent the next month getting a bunch of tests done, like CT scans and MRI of my brain, PET scans, and a bone marrow biopsy to see if it had spread anywhere, and luckily, the tumor was still localized in my leg, so all I needed was one more surgery in the same area as before to get rid of the remaining cancer cells. I feel extremely fortunate that I was able to get away without needing chemotherapy or radiation. The only downside was that it took me about a month after the surgery before I could walk normally. It's been 2 years since that happened. I still go for follow-up scans, and they've all been clean ever since. There are no indicators that this thing should come back anytime soon, or maybe even ever.